What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the J Area. My name is Jose Ramos Jr., and we got a lot to talk about in regards to this post-show reaction. Welcome back to the J Area. My name is Jose Ramos Jr. A lot of excitement, obviously, with the conclusion of SmackDown this evening. Alex, big shout out, the first one here, supporting the J Area Wrestling channel. Appreciate you, appreciate the support. But obviously, what an ending to Friday Night SmackDown. I mean, we knew with the War Games matchup coming in regards to the men that it was going to be something that they needed to build up to, right? They needed something that would add a little extra oomph when it came to this matchup. The Bloodline saga, whether it be revolving around the OG Bloodline, the new Bloodline, the fact is, it's something that has really encompassed the whole WWE story, really, over the past 4 years. It's really had a stranglehold over everything going on with the storylines, indirectly or directly. I mean, take a look at the WWE title picture currently with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. You obviously look at the War Games matchup, and for weeks we're wondering who was going to be that fifth member. It was a struggle for the OG Bloodline. They attempted to get that help from Seth Rollins, LA Knight, and eventually, Roman Reigns begins to acknowledge that he needs to seek outside help. He needs to go to a place where he hasn't been in a long time, and that's hold himself accountable. He wanted to have peace within the bloodline as a means to defeat Solo Sikoa's bloodline. Now, there are bits and pieces of that old Roman Reigns, that tyrannical, dictator-like leader that led the bloodline for a few years there. But he makes the phone call to Paul Heyman last week, and of course we all know the service isn't there. The number you tried to reach is disconnected. It has no service. So we're wondering, who is it? Where's Paul Heyman? We talked about on an episode of the J Area podcast, as well as last week's post-show reaction, that there was a possibility that maybe Paul Heyman was ignoring Roman Reigns. Or maybe the other theory that, hey, Solo Sikoa did destroy one of Paul Heyman's number directly tied to Roman Reigns. We open up the show here, obviously, with the Bloodline saga. How can you not? And Solo Sikoa issues a challenge to Roman Reigns, basically telling him to surrender. Right. You have 4 guys, I have 5. And might I say, the acquisition of Bronson Reed, to include him in this bloodline, makes that even more of a force. I mean, we have the Gorillas of Destiny and Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, but then you add the level of beef behind them in Jacob Fatu and Bronson Reed. I mean, now that's a formidable force there. Now, my question is he actually a Bloodline member? Because during the introductions of that segment, it kind of led me to believe that he's been integrated into the group. I don't know if it's just for the time being. Obviously, for the War Games matchup, that was my understanding. But for some reason, I kind of got the vibe that he's being integrated into this group. Now, we'll have to wait and see following the Survivor Series. But again, there is showing a challenge to Roman Reigns to surrender. He has until the end of the night. And I love seeing these interactions between the Usos, Sami, and Roman Reigns. It takes me back to a couple years ago in 2022 when they were ruling television in terms of WWE, that is. Every segment they had, entertainment. Every segment that they have, memorable, historic, laughs. How can you not? Then we get to the point where we're in the locker room. And they talk about who they've gone through already. They even mentioned Cody Rhodes, which I'm surprised it had taken them this long, as Cody Rhodes could have been a possible teammate here for the War Games matchup. And Roman Reigns said no. He's old news, which is logical. Roman Reigns, why would he want to have Cody Rhodes' help? He's already been there. He's done that. He's done with that part of the story. Then again, if I'm Roman Reigns, I don't want to have to keep resorting to my enemy. Because those two, that's your top 2 guys. They're as close as we're going to get to a Stone Cold and The Rock in this generation. So we're left wondering, who is it going to be? We get to the final segment of the show. Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline are in the ring, and they're real quick to be interrupted by the OG Bloodline with an iconic entrance, of course. And then not too long after, we hear a familiar voice announcing himself with, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman." And the crowd goes wild. I mean, like the pop that Paul Heyman had earned after being gone for so many months, after being placed through a table, triple powerbomb Shield style in Madison Square Garden. It was nice to see Paul Heyman get that type of reception. And it was a different look for Paul Heyman. Usually he has the traditional suit and tie ready to go, suited and booted, but not this time. He had a red shirt underneath with just his sports coat over. And he talks about the War Games and says how this is not going to be 5 versus 4. It's going to be 5 versus 5. And so we're left wondering who? Who is the fifth man? Why, it's a former Paul Heyman guy. It's a guy that Paul Heyman knows real well. In fact, he was one of the last guys that Paul Heyman pleaded with before suffering that attack. He asked him for a favor, and he asked what was that favor, and he said, "Take me with you." Of course, I'm talking about Phil Brooks, also known as CM Punk. CM Punk, obviously, if you're familiar with the content that I produce here, is one of my all-time favorites. So to see him implemented into the storyline is just wild. You know, we've obviously had familiar faces in like Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, guys who have been there, rinse and repeat. CM Punk's only interaction with the Bloodline was that episode of SmackDown where Paul Heyman pleaded with him to take him with him. And again, for me, I enjoy storytelling when it's logical, when it makes sense. CM Punk and Paul Heyman, those two are not strangers at all. You cannot tell the story of Paul Heyman without talking about Punk, and vice versa. You can't talk about Punk without Paul Heyman. That historic championship title reign that had ran from Survivor Series 2011 all the way to the Royal Rumble event in 2013. 434 days. That involves CM Punk with Paul Heyman right by his side. Paul Heyman, funny enough, has 3 of the longest reigning world champions in the modern era. You look at the 434 days with CM Punk. Following that, Brock Lesnar held the Universal title for about a year and a half. And then obviously we know about the 1,316-day reign of Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman knows excellence. He is one of, if not, the best manager in WWE history. Maybe professional wrestling. But certainly I think the argument should be made in the WWE. So we get this huge, schmoz between the Bloodline and the OG Bloodline. CM Punk nearly standing side by side with them because he doesn't really have a chance to stand by side. He just jumps into the ring and throws punches. And we're having an all-out brawl here. Roman Reigns, CM Punk, the Usos, Sami Zayn, they obviously get the upper hand on the heels. And we're left a moment there where CM Punk and Roman Reigns standing across from each other in the ring. And the crowd begins to build and build and build. And they're chanting OTC. OTC, over the counter, because that's what the doctor prescribed when it comes to Roman Reigns. But then it starts to rumble a little more, and the crowd kind of turns. And they start chanting CM Punk more. CM Punk got a huge reaction there, because I don't think anybody was anticipating him to be in the house for Friday Night SmackDown, let alone be announced as the 5th man in what is going to be a historic War Games matchup between the Bloodline and the OG Bloodline. That standoff between him and Roman Reigns, him being CM Punk, for me, takes me back. Because you'd have to go all the way back to 2012 when I talk about that 434-day as WWE Champion for CM Punk, because it was during that title reign. In fact, it was the night that he was able to accomplish 365 days as champion that Roman Reigns had made his debut at the Survivor Series. Of course, that was alongside Dean Ambrose, now known as Jon Moxley, and Seth Rollins, the Shield. They had their first interactions there. CM Punk had feuded with the Shield in the winter of 2013, TLC, 3-on-1. In fact, Roman Reigns was one of the last guys that Punk had a match against at Royal Rumble 2014 when it came down to he, Roman Reigns, Batista, I believe Sheamus as well was the final four, and what was Punk's last WWE matchup for a decade. The story runs deep when it comes to Roman and Punk, and these are two of the biggest draws that the WWE has today. You'd have to go back all the way then to recognize just how significant it was when the Shield was created. The early thought process was, we're going to give CM Punk some muscle. We're going to give him a group that can do his business, can do his dirty bidding. And Punk, if you were to listen to the podcast between he and former friend Colt Cabana, the Art of Wrestling podcast, where he shared a lot of information in regards to his departure from the WWE in 2014, Punk said himself that initially members of the Shield were going to be Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Chris Hero. But the WWE didn't want Chris Hero. They said, we'll give you Rollins and we'll give you Moxley, obviously Ambrose, but we want to include Roman. And Punk acquiesced. He said, okay, fine. You want to include your guy? Totally fine. So in a way, Punk kind of brought Roman to the dance. Now, I'm not going to flat out say like, oh, Roman's success is all due to Punk. I'm not saying that. But their stories are forever intertwined. Roman Reigns' run at the top, from the 2014 to about 2019 era, that was the time when a lot of folks thought that he was being force-fed to the WWE audience. That was a time where they seemed to have been tone deaf. They didn't recognize what people actually wanted. On the contrary, they said, we don't care what you want. We're going to give you Roman. We're going to give him these promos that are ridiculous. We're going to have him cut these promos where he's quoting Sylvester the Cat from Looney Tunes, saying, suffering succotash. We're going to give him blue eye contacts to make him more of a babyface, to make him more likable. In retrospect, looking back, I don't know how that they thought that would be a good idea. We're gonna change the color over his eyes just to make him more of a babyface, as if that's gonna make a huge appeal to Roman Reigns. And in that time that they were trying to force it, rather than let it happen natural, rather than turning him heel, like how they did in 2020, and look how that turned out. He's now the biggest star in professional wrestling. Rather than doing that, they stuck to their guns and they kept plowing through. And what did the audience do every time something happened that they either did not approve of or they simply wanted to voice their displeasure? They chanted CM Punk for a decade. Whenever something didn't go their way, or they didn't like the direction of a storyline, or they just didn't care for what was going on TV, the crowd chanted CM Punk. And I feel like there's a part of Roman where that kind of eats at him. Where it's like, maybe not directly. It wasn't Punk's fault. But he has become the poster boy for what it is to be anti-authority, to become a bit of a contrarian, to go against the grain. And that's something CM Punk has been known to be. So to see them in the ring once again, after all this time, it's building towards a matchup. Now, not saying it's going to be at WrestleMania, but it certainly builds up the hype for a potential big money matchup between CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Who goes over? Man, I don't know. And at this point, I don't really care. I just want to see the matchup. But I think another thing to point out here, in regards to CM Punk, number one, he's going to be in War Games for the first time. That's huge. To see him come back to the WWE, he's already had a strap match. He's already had Hell in a Cell, arguably the best Hell in a Cell matchup in modern time. I would put him in my top 5 personally. He's about to go into War Games. That would only be the 3rd time in the main roster's history. CM Punk, and on top of that, being reintroduced with Paul Heyman, that's a huge thing for me because I really loved that title reign in 2012. He didn't get the respect that he had earned. Never main evented unless if Cena was involved. He kept, getting pushed to the side for guys like John Cena. Keep this in mind. Over the Limit 2012, a pay-per-view that had Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk for the WWE title was not the main event. Rather, it was John Cena versus John Laurinaitis. That was your main event. That was your main event. That's what you were going to sell tickets on. That's criminal. And then you go, I believe it was maybe a month after, No Way Out, 2012. Daniel Bryan and Punk again. You add Kane to make it a triple threat. But what was the main event? It was a steel cage match between The Big Show and John Cena. What are we doing? What are we doing? The disrespect is crazy. But I go back to CM Punk. And the reason I'll keep focusing on him is because this is a huge domino effect. Because we're talking about the Paul Heyman interaction. We're talking about the future matchup between Roman and CM Punk. But what does this mean for Seth Rollins? Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. What does this have to do with Seth Rollins? He clearly doesn't want to have any peace with the Bloodline. He turned them down several times. Well, if I'm Seth Rollins clearly has a vendetta against CM Punk. He went so far as to call him a cancer for any locker room, that he did not want him back in the WWE. It's well documented. These two do not like each other. And it's been proven, the last couple weeks, Seth Rollins doesn't like Roman Reigns. He doesn't like who he's become. He talks about how over the last few years, he had, again, an iron fist over the WWE universe. It was his show. It was his way or the highway. Roman Reigns reigned all over the WWE. And you guys want to help him get control back? You want to help him become the tribal chief? You want to go back to what we tried to end for 4 years? That doesn't work for me. In the words of Hulk Hogan, that doesn't work for me, brother. And now, his arch nemesis in CM Punk, who again is one of the biggest contrarians there is in professional wrestling. He is a polarizing figure. Either you love him or you hate him. There is no in between. You're going to side with Roman Reigns. That friction is only going to further the feud. In order to create a flame, you need a little bit of friction, and this friction between Rollins and Punk will lead to a fiery matchup. And of course, what we're all thinking is WrestleMania 41. It should have been WrestleMania 40, but on account of a devastating future shock DDT that would sideline Punk for several months of 2024, we didn't get that at WrestleMania 40, but I'm pretty confident that we can guess it's going to be at WrestleMania 41. Who goes over? I'm thinking Punk. I mean, that's just me talking now. But it's just going to lead into that. And I feel like that's quite obvious. I want to hear from you guys, though, on CM Punk's involvement in the Bloodline, his surprise return, as well as surprise announcement being in War Games, Paul Heyman's introduction back into the storyline. Looked like he was revitalized, looked like he was re-energized. Had a little bit of a tan there. Had a nice little suit jacket, had his red shirt in, a little pep in his step on the way to the ring after CM Punk makes his return. What a way to end Friday Night SmackDown, where a couple of other things happened of note. Obviously, we have the card here off to the right-hand side of the screen. Of course, as always, we try to keep it there just in case people come in and out of the live stream and they can see what is being discussed. I do want to jump around here and quickly talk about Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. Of course, unless if someone wants to jump in the chat, I'll be more than glad to address any comments or questions. But Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes, again, indirectly related to the Bloodline saga. Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes delivered, I thought, one of the best promos in regards to their story. You go to Bash in Berlin, and we've had a lot of hints at what was going on between Kevin and Cody. Friends. Go back to 2016 when Cody Rhodes had left the WWE requesting his release. Who directed him to the Young Bucks and Ring of Honor? It was Kevin Owens. Go hang out with my friends. Go with them. They'll take care of you. They'll show you the way. And in that way, they became members of the Bullet Club. They became the elite. They helped create All Elite Wrestling, the alternative to the WWE. And now, while Cody's gone, Kevin Owens is fighting the Bloodline, the very same group that we are trying to take down for the better part of 4 years. Cody comes back. He's a babyface. He's going to help take him down. Kevin talks about being at WrestleMania 39, trying to help him win that WWE title. Being there at WrestleMania 40, celebrating his title win and finishing the story. All those years that they had placed in trying to take down Roman Reigns, practically thrown away. In Kevin Owens' mind, practically thrown away by him teaming up with the OTC. And Cody Rhodes defends himself. He says, I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And at this point, Solo Sikoa is running chaos on SmackDown and Raw as of late. With the Tongans, with Jacob Fatu, and apparently now Bronson Reed. So Cody Rhodes tries to defend himself. During the promo, I thought it was a little bit of a dangerous game here. Kevin Owens, I mean, in a way, I can understand him. I can't entirely blame Kevin Owens. So my thing was like, what if the fans agree with Kevin and they start turning on Cody? Cody is the most purest of baby faces that we have had in quite some time, where it's a strong majority that cheer him. It's not 50-50 like John Cena. It's not an anti-hero like The Rock or Stone Cold. He's a pure baby face. So I'm thinking, well, we're going to put him in a position here where we might have a turn from the audience. Luckily, we didn't, because Cody is a strong promo and he's a strong baby face. And his foil against Kevin Owens here is great because it provides logic. Kevin Owens, for all intents and purposes, even though he's going around attacking Cody, giving pile drivers to Randy Orton, he doesn't think he's wrong. And again, granted, part of him makes a lot of sense. But it's the way he's going about it. Cody Rhodes is incensed on getting retaliation against Kevin Owens, not only for the attack outside of his tour bus, but also because of what happened to his mentor in Randy Orton, who has had neck injuries, back injuries, and Kevin Owens delivers a pile driver and really putting it over as a devastating maneuver that was banned for quite some time. Again, funny enough, everything ties together. One of the last times, if not the last time we saw a pile driver maneuver that was this devastating was in February of 2013 when CM Punk nailed a pile driver on John Cena during the build-up to WrestleMania 29. It's something they don't want. It's something they don't want to present. People have shortened their careers. People have been paralyzed from this maneuver. Shoot. Like, this isn't... I'm not pulling kayfabe. Look at draws. Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is a real thing. It's a real issue. It's a real concern. And I think it's important that they acknowledge that, the WWE, because it only adds more emphasis to each maneuver. Back in the day, DDTs and pile drivers and elbow drops were finishers. Like, those were the way people won matches. Nowadays, you just use them as filler. You use them as a transitional move just to get to the next step. And putting more emphasis on it as a pile driver and making sure that fans and wrestlers alike recognize the severity of a maneuver that way. Again, it elevates it, not only in the importance of the maneuver, but the importance of the story, of the narrative. And Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens knocked it out of the park during today's promo. That face-off added more fuel to the fire. They hinted at having a matchup at the Survivor Series. They hinted at a matchup at Saturday Night's Main Event, which I think that is where we're going to have this matchup. I think it's maybe too late for Survivor Series. Otherwise, they would have announced it here tonight. So I'm thinking in New York, we're going to have Saturday Night's Main Event, December 14th, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. And I think it's a proper matchup here to build towards a fresh main event. And it reminds you of like an old school, like in the 80s and 90s, Saturday Night's Main Event, where you had a top-tier babyface against a top-tier heel for a top-tier championship. And I can't wait. Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes should deliver, should be a banger. And again, we're talking about championships. How about we talk about the U.S. title? United States Championship, not only for the men, but for the women. Chelsea Green advances, which I think is a great call. That's who I was supporting. Got nothing against Blair Davenport. Love Bianca Belair. But when you have your tag team partner like Jade Cargill getting attacked in the manner that she did, being put through the windshield of what I'm guessing is a rental sedan, I mean, that's your tag team partner. You got to make sure she's okay, right? And she runs out, does the right thing, pushes away Naomi and Bayley, saying, stay out of it. She's my partner. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Was that a little bit of an attitude by Bianca? I mean, yeah, she was distressed. I get it. But what does that do for War Games? Jade Cargill was pulled from the triple threat match in next week's, tournament for the U.S. title in the women's division. Will she not make it for War Games? And if she doesn't, that fifth spot is open. Perhaps Bayley? Perhaps Bayley has an issue with Nia, with Tiffany, with Candice. Maybe that opens a spot for her. But that is a question for another day, because once Bianca left, that left it to a one-on-one contest between Chelsea Green and Blair Davenport. Now, part of me was a little nervous there. I thought, oh my God, they might give it to Blair. But they obviously went with the route of Chelsea Green. She pulls out the victory and advances to the semifinals, where I believe she's actually taking on Bayley. And these two, before the tournament, I wanted, either one of these to win, Bayley or Chelsea Green. One of them's going to get knocked out in the next round. And I don't know who I would like as a champion more. Again, the triple threat match was entertaining, but it wasn't the only matchup that involved the U.S. title, because the men's was also defended in the very next matchup as L.A. Knight, defended his title against Santos Escobar for, I think, like the 7th time at this point. But again, it's L.A. Knight, it's Santos. Solid matchup here between the two. The story really being the interference from Shinsuke Nakamura. He has this new look to him that I really approve of. It's a fresh take on the character. I like the menacing nature of Shinsuke. I'm hoping that he and LA Knight have the proper chemistry to deliver a good matchup here, because I think LA Knight has that brash confidence of like an old school 90s baby face, whereas Shinsuke Nakamura has like that old school heel mentality and presentation. So I'm certainly looking forward to that match. LA Knight, though, successfully defends, defeating Humberto last week, defeating Santos this week. Does that mean we're going to get a matchup here against Angel? I doubt it. I think we're going to move to Shinsuke. But it's still. I'm going to take a quick swig of water here. Also with the women, Naomi and Bayley, they get a DQ victory over, DQ as in disqualification, not Dairy Queen. DQ victory over Tiffany Stratton and Candice LeRae. Again, another matchup here. Whatever's involved with the Nia Jax storyline, I feel like is overshadowed by the attacks afterwards. Whether it's a disqualification, whether, again, it's a post-match beatdown, overshadows the matchup for me. Naomi and Bayley, two of the best baby faces in the company, two of the best women's in the women's division, overshadowed here by the attacks. If anything, we're building towards War Games. So it was cool seeing Liv Morgan. It was cool seeing Raquel. It was really cool to see Rhea Ripley pulling out the black mask. Obviously, the orbital bone fractured. Also wielding I was going to call it a Singapore cane, but they haven't been called that in a long time. A kendo stick. Whacking Raquel Rodriguez, leaving a mark there on her back. Again, this was a throwaway matchup. It was really just set up to build towards the War Games matchup. So we have to see what they're going to do with that fifth spot, because I don't think Jade Cargill is going to be able to go, being that she won't be in that triple threat matchup next week on SmackDown. Montez Ford defeats Ciampa as a way to advance the storyline there between Ciampa and Gargano. We know that Gargano and Ciampa have a tumultuous history here. Obviously in NXT, Ciampa and Gargano had their differences that led to the attack at NXT TakeOver Chicago, and then obviously the 3 series of matches that they had in NXT, which I think is the best rivalry that NXT has ever had, personally. But Ciampa and Gargano not looking to be on the same page as of right now, especially given the relationship that Ciampa has with the Motor City Machine Guns. A lot of chaos, a lot of tumultuous relationships there in the tag team division, whether it's the Street Profits, DIY, or the Motor City Machine Guns. I expect that to continue, and I'm worried for DIY. I don't want them to break up. I like DIY. I'm a big fan of theirs since 2016. So to see them, again, hinting at a breakup, we knew it was going to happen, but to see it in the manner that it is, I'm really disappointed. Really disappointed in the two. I'm hoping they can pull it together, though. I don't want them to break up, and if they do, well, hey, we know we're going to get a hell of a matchup there between the two. I'm hoping, if anything, we get a little bit of a refresher. Maybe Johnny Gargano sees the light, sees the error of his ways, and sides with Ciampa. They turn heel and just attack Motor City Machine Guns, because I want more of the Machine Guns versus DIY. But again, as I said, if not, rock with the punches, and we'll see what Ciampa and Gargano can do on their own. And I'm worried for them because I look at them and I'm like, I don't know if they're going to last on the main roster. There's a lot of talent going on, especially with Raw going to Netflix. SmackDown will be the premiere show on USA, and they're going to have to reshuffle the divisions. I'm thinking we're probably going to get a draft, maybe not in the next month, but certainly within the next few months. They're going to reshuffle. My fear is that a guy like Gargano and Ciampa might get lost in that shuffle because I don't see Gargano challenging for the WWE title. I see more in the US title, Intercontinental Championship type of division. Ciampa, I think, could get a title matchup against Cody Rhodes. I could definitely see that happening. I think they have more to do with Ciampa than they do with Gargano. But that's just my opinion. If they do go the singles route, I wish them the best. But that's not where we're at yet. Gargano and Ciampa still a relative tag team. But this is 2 weeks in a row that Ciampa has put his hands on Gargano. And if I'm Gargano, he's a dad. He's a father. He's a husband. He got pride. He's not going to let Ciampa push him around like that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If he does it a third time, well then he just got to lay him out if I'm Gargano. So I think we're going to reach a bowling point there where it comes to DIY. But I mean, hey, them's is the breaks, right? Them's is the breaks. SmackDown, what a lit show. What a way to cap off the night here. CM Punk, again, for those who are just tuning in, joins the Bloodline, the OG Bloodline, obviously with the wise man, Paul Heyman, teaming up with Roman Reigns, only adding more to the long history between the two, both in front of and behind the camera. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Monday Night Raw, because CM Punk, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, all members of Monday Night Raw, Rhea Ripley, again, another member of Monday Night Raw, Bronson Reed, all made appearances. So I'm thinking we're going to get crossover here from the SmackDown brand onto Monday Night Raw as a way to continue to build up the Survivor Series War Games matchups here, and especially because it's going to be held in Arizona. I keep talking about it, so your boy's going to be there. I'm going to be in attendance for Monday Night Raw. Looking forward to it. We already have a couple matches that have been announced. Intercontinental Champion Braun Breaker will be defending his title against Ludwig Kaiser. We will also have Bianca Belair versus Nia Jax to determine who has the advantage at the War Games. So it'll be real fun. If you guys want to, have eagle eye, you want to catch me maybe, I'm going to be on hard cam side, more so towards the left. So you look directly in the front of the screen. I'm probably going to be more so on the left side of your screen as I try to adjust my hand there. Haven't decided what I'm going to wear exactly. Probably going to wear something white because it kind of pops on Monday Night Raw. Debating about bringing a sign. It was brought to my attention. It was a suggestion by one of my family members. Maybe I should bring a sign. Maybe catch your guys' attention. Maybe promote the podcast, the channel. I don't know. But I'm definitely considering it. I think that'd be an awesome idea. Shout out to them. And I want to hear from you guys in regards to SmackDown, Monday Night Raw. Again, on Monday night, obviously. It's in the title. We'll be there. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Go ahead and start sounding off in the comments with any type of questions, comments. I see Alex. Are you looking forward? Are you looking forward to a specific match for Monday Night Raw? So, I mean, at the time right now, they only have 2 listed for the actual event, Alex. Like I said, it was Braun Breaker versus Kaiser and Bianca versus Nia Jax. I'm looking forward to Braun Breaker. Nothing against Bianca and Nia Jax. I'm looking forward to Braun Breaker because of what they're doing there with him, Kaiser, Sheamus. I think it's all but guaranteed we're going to get some kind of involvement from Sheamus just as a way to pay back Kaiser. But the reason I'm looking really forward to Braun Breaker is because I was fortunate enough to attend the March 1st edition of SmackDown. Again, when they came here in Arizona. And that was Braun Breaker's first matchup on SmackDown, his debut on the main roster, and he had a matchup that lasted 8 seconds. It was blinking and miss it. I was able to take some pictures and record his entrance. I stopped recording once the matchup started. He hits a huge spear, 1, 2, 3, match over, and I'm like, dude, I could have just recorded the whole fight. But I want to see the progression here. Seeing him from that first matchup and seeing how he's been able to build his character, build up his athleticism as if he wasn't already athletic enough. I'm looking forward to that. Braun Breaker for sure. Aside from matches, I'm also looking forward to seeing what kind of adjustments or additions to Survivor Series we're going to see. Of course, I'm referring to the War Games matchup, but at the time of recording here, there's only 3 matches scheduled for War Games. We have the women's and the men's, and obviously the World Heavyweight Championship matchup that will see Gunther, the Ring General, defending his title against the number 1 contender, Damian Priest. Obviously, Hunter really likes these 5-match premium live events, but right now we're sitting at 3. I think we're going to get 2. I would like to see what they're going to be or who it's going to be involved, but I'm sure Monday Night Raw will have a lot of other stuff. I'm expecting New Day type of content, maybe the Wyatt 6 and the Final Testament of some sort. We'll have some kind of progression in their storyline. What I'm really hoping for is maybe Jey Uso and Sammy and Jimmy make an appearance. Obviously, hey, CM Punk is technically assigned to Monday Night Raw, so I would love to see CM Punk. CM Punk, of course, being my second favorite professional wrestler of all time, only behind Shawn Michaels. And I've been able to see CM Punk only on one occasion when I was fortunate enough to attend WrestleMania 26. And I saw him have a matchup against Rey Mysterio. So this, again, if Punk is there, it will be the second time I get to see him. So, I mean, that'd be really cool. Again, big fan of CM Punk. So I'm hoping with his return here on SmackDown, there's a shot that we see him on Monday Night Raw. But we'll have to wait and see. And I don't know if you guys know, but SmackDown apparently was listed for a double taping. Obviously, we have the live edition today, but next week's SmackDown, I believe, is also being filmed today. So whatever's going to happen next week has already been covered. So they easily could have CM Punk on the SmackDown prior to the Survivor Series. Luis, hi, I am new to your channel. I enjoy your content and like that you stay up late to talk about the shows. Well, I appreciate that. I like staying up late and talking with you guys about the shows and what's going on. It's more so of a work in progress, really, when it comes to the scheduling. A lot of times I have like videos pop up about 10 a.m. on the West Coast. And I want to have more lives. I do. But again, here, like out in Arizona, the shows don't end until like 11 o'clock. So that's why I'm up late talking about it. I would like to do other lives too. Like I'm debating about going live tomorrow. Because I usually have my 10 a.m. slot, West Coast, reserved. But I'm debating about maybe doing a live during the day, during the weekend, because I'm seeing, thankfully, on like the analytics, that there's more activity on Saturday morning / afternoons where people are tuning in and watching the videos that are already up. So I might take advantage of that. Obviously, tomorrow will also be AEW Full Gear. So I'm tempted to take part in that, maybe record a live after that, if not Sunday. But I always try to keep up with the community posts and keep you guys up to date. You mentioned you're going to the next show. Have you been to a lot of events? If you have, which match has been your favorite? I've been fortunate enough to go to a few. My very first one was in 2006, May. It was the Judgment Day pay-per-view. That was my very first wrestling show that I saw live. Thankfully, my parents surprised us. It was back in 2006, so I was like 8 when it had happened. My favorite match of that, I'll go through maybe every show because I've been to a few. My favorite match of Judgment Day 2006 was watching Rey Mysterio versus JBL. I was a very big Rey Mysterio fan growing up. I was a very big JBL hater because I thought he was just like the worst guy. Like growing up now, obviously, he's like one of the best heels I think of this generation, of this modern era, I guess. And I think JBL should definitely get more props in that department. But he was so good against Rey Mysterio. Him and Rey, I think, always had great chemistry. Certainly when it came to in the ring and when it came to their characters and like the polar opposites. So seeing Rey defeat JBL live, I thought that was awesome. I remember, I believe Dominic and like Rey's family was actually in front row. So I mean, that's cool looking back. After that, I think, yeah, after that, WrestleMania 26 in 2010 was my second event. Again, very fortunate to have that opportunity thanks to my parents as a gift. That means I would have been like 12 or about to be 12. My favorite match of that one, I mean, it's my favorite matchup. I'll answer your question because you said, what's my favorite that I've been to? It's easily Shawn versus Taker. Shawn versus The Undertaker, Part 2, WrestleMania 26. It is one of the greatest matches, I think, in WrestleMania history. And it's one of my favorite core memories growing up as a wrestling fan because my dad had a friend who they worked previously at a different job, but he had then began working at the stadium, which is now State Farm Stadium. Shout out Carl. And he knew we were going to the show. So we had decent seats. I'm not gonna like pretend like we were floor seats. We weren't, but it was good seats. And his name was Carl. He comes over, says hi, introduces himself. I never met him until then. And he actually gave us these wristbands that allowed us floor access. So for the entrances of Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, we were like on the floor, like right there by the stage, by the ramp. So when like The Undertaker's flames came out, the pyro of the flames, you could feel it. It's dense, it's warm, it's like singe your eyebrows off of it. If I had any more hair, it would singe off because of the heat. And because of that, the matchup is about to start up. And The Undertaker and Shawn, they're starting to get their moves in. And I remember security telling us, like, hey, the match is going to start. You guys got to get to your seats. There is a spot. You said you're new, Luis, and I would love to show this to you guys. There is a spot where you can see myself, my little brother, and my dad walking past hard cam. There's a spot where you can easily see me. Let me see if I can pop it up here. And that's like one of my cherished memories. Is like, dude, like I was on TV for WrestleMania 26. You got to bear with me here. That's easily one of my favorite memories. The WrestleMania 26, I think, is the best event that I've gone to. I've also gone to the Royal Rumble in 2019, the one where Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch had won their respective Royal Rumble matchups. I think that, again, was a cool night. It was the only Royal Rumble I've been to. You've been to WrestleMania? That's awesome. Honestly, yeah. It was super cool. And it was cool because, like, WrestleMania 26 was the first appearance of, like, Daniel Bryan. I remember he was standing on the stage during... It was, like, the pre-show. It wasn't during the pay-per-view. They had, like, their little battle royal that they do, the dark match, before the show starts. And before that battle royal, NXT, like, the competition show, was just starting. So they introduced the wrestlers, and Daniel Bryan was there. Have you met any wrestlers? I have met one. I was able to meet Rey Mysterio. Love the questions, guys. Keep them coming. Let me try to pop up Rey Mysterio real quick. I met Rey Mysterio in 2008. In 2008, they were doing an event, Cyber Sunday, and they had came here to Arizona, where it was in the Phoenix Suns Arena. I think now it's I don't even know. I remember it was the U.S. Airways Arena. Now I think it's Talking Stick Resort now. Oh no, it's Footprint Center. They keep changing the name. So we went to like a Nissan dealership, and it was like a meet and greet. And I remember one time my family was just like, "Hey, like we're gonna go meet Rey Mysterio." And it was like it was so exciting. Rey Mysterio is one of the nicest guys ever. I will defend him because there was this one time where someone was trying to like talk bad about Ray and like, oh, he doesn't care about his fans. I don't know, man. Like the little interaction that I had with Ray couldn't be any nicer, couldn't be any more cordial. He was patient with us. I mean, we were kids. I was like 10 years old. He was super nice. I'm trying to find the picture. I have it somewhere in here. But he was nice. He was super cool to my brother and my sister. My brother had, I thought I saw it. Oh, here's a picture of WrestleMania. This is a picture of me when I was at WrestleMania 26. It's me and my little brother. Might not be great quality, obviously, because of the camera. Let's see if we can get little me. I was a little chunkier back then. That was WrestleMania 26. Let's see if I can find. Oh man, I'm gonna be real upset if I can't find this. But no, Rey Mysterio, man. One of the coolest guys. I have a cool story to share about Ray and my brother. But I want to find this picture first, man. My brother, there was they used to have these magazines where you can outline like a picture of his mask, and you could outline it, design it, make your own whatever. My brother, again, I traced it out, and he colored his own version of Rey Mysterio's mask. What he did was half black, half yellow. At the time, Transformers was just getting big, the Michael Bay movies. So he does half black and half yellow for Bumblebee, and he gives it to Ray, and he says, "I made this." And Ray was like, "Oh, that's super cool. Like, I'm gonna make this one day." And I promise you, like on everything I care about, a month later, Rey Mysterio comes out, half yellow, half black, the same design that my brother had made him. And my brother at the time, 7, I want to say. Super cool. Dude, I know I have this picture here somewhere. It's gonna kill me. Ray's cool. But I was talking about WrestleMania 26. If you look at the opening matchup, there is, or not the opening matchup, the opening minutes of Shawn versus Taker. There's a spot where Shawn is giving chops to The Undertaker in the turnbuckle, like closest to the camera. Then they make their way to the one furthest, more closer to the audience. And there's a moment there where you can see me walking back, and I'm looking directly at the camera. So like I'm walking this way, and I'm looking right at the camera. And you can't miss it, because I'm like the only kid wearing like glasses. And you can see like my dad and myself, my brother making our way to our seats, because they were telling us, "Hey, you got to get to your seats." I think I'm pretty sure I've uploaded a video of that, maybe early on, like in the infancy of the channel itself. I'm pretty sure I have that. It really was awesome. Like, again, these are guys that like they're contracted to be at certain places for certain times. So it's like we get it. They're probably tired. These are commitments that they have to do. So he easily didn't have to be that cool. But he was. Maybe because we were kids. Maybe. But just knowing that there's someone out there like that, like Ray, who I found it, who's like really appreciative and just gracious with his time with his fans. Let's see if we can get a good look here. It's the glare. There's Ray. There's Ray, and then obviously my brother, my little sister, and I'm the one in the back. 2008, super cool. He signed a picture, which I still have. I'm gonna upload the picture of Ray, the picture of WrestleMania 26, and I'm gonna look for the spot I'm talking about, where I'm walking in the background, I'm gonna look for that too, and I'm gonna upload them tomorrow as like a community post. So keep an eye out for those pictures. Because again, like I know I have them. It's just when you have so much memory on your phone and you don't save them in certain spots, it kind of takes a second to look for them, right? But yeah, WrestleMania 26, I talked about Royal Rumble 2019. We had been there for episodes of Raw and SmackDown. We were at the Raw where there was a gauntlet match. It was Raw 2018, February 20th, 2018. It was a gauntlet match. I don't know if you guys remember. Seth Rollins lasted like an hour and a half. It was on the Build Elimination Chamber where it was Seth Rollins, it was Elias, Finn Balor, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, John Cena. It was this huge gauntlet matchup that took up like half of the show. We were there for that, so that was cool. We were also there for the SmackDown after. Baron Corbin had fought AJ Styles in the main event, and aside from that, I don't remember what else. I just remember that gauntlet matchup, and then obviously the AJ versus Baron Corbin matchup. We went to an NXT live show when they came. It was in 2019. I remember Adam Cole defended the title against Tyler Breeze. It was a North American title. Yeah, no, thank you for asking the questions. I'm sorry, I feel like I was neglecting the screen there for a second there, but it's because I was looking for the pictures. I wanted to find them, so I didn't want you guys thinking I was ignoring you. I was just looking for those pictures. But like I said, I'll upload them tomorrow on the community post, so keep an eye out for those pictures. So we had went to that, and then the last show that we went to was the SmackDown March 1st edition of this year, where The Rock and Roman Reigns opened up the show, and that was when The Rock had issued the tag team challenge of him and Roman versus Cody and Seth. We were there for that one as well, so that was a really cool moment there. So we'll be there for Monday Night Raw this upcoming Monday, adding it to the list of shows that we've been to. They have a show coming up in January for SmackDown as well. Don't know if we'll make it for that one. I would like to. I'm going to try to see if I can cop some tickets myself. But if not, hey, it's all good. You know, we'll come back around when they come around. Kevin, what are your thoughts on Big Show? I feel like he was so misused. He should have been portrayed and marketed as a much more menacing character. I thought there was a lot of potential with the Big Show. I think I like the early iteration when he like debuted in '99, and he was kind of like the muscle for McMahon, but they turned him so quick. And speaking of turn, the problem with the Big Show is I feel like there was never consistency with him. They would always turn him babyface and turn him heel and flip flop him, and it's like you could never really. I think, in my opinion, you can never really develop a sense of investment in him because he was just always turning. I liked the version of the Big Show where he was just a monster. He was menacing. I think I agree with you. They misused him. They had all the potential to create an attraction out of him, like a Brock Lesnar type of attraction, especially because early on in like WCW, he was introduced as like the son of Andre the Giant. Again, they didn't have to deliberately say that he was the son, but they could have treated him in that vein. I think another thing too with the Big Show is he's limited. I'm a fan of the Big Show. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best giants that WWE or pro wrestling has ever had. But his limitations with his weight as well. And I don't want to, point out weight, but I mean, you look at his run in 2006. I thought in 2006 there was a shot here when he was with ECW where he could have been that menacing heel. He could have been the antithesis of what ECW fans wanted, and he could have been that monster heel. But he took some time away. He slimmed down, which was awesome. I liked his interaction with Floyd Mayweather. I thought that was entertaining. I thought that was cool. I liked that he was able to have a couple world title shots, like in 2012, 2013, and he held the World Heavyweight Championship when he beat Sheamus. With him, it was like start and stop. There were moments where it was like, okay, this is cool. And then it would go back to like comedy, or like when he would cry in the middle of the ring because of like Stephanie McMahon, or he would, I don't know. It was start and stop. It was tough. If you're a Big Show fan, I'm sorry, because there was just inconsistency. They didn't really know what to do with him. There were times where it's like, we're gonna make him a monster heel and beat everybody and everybody, and then it's like, well, now we're gonna use him to feed Roman Reigns, or we're gonna use him to feed John Cena. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword. It's a good question on the Big Show. What's your favorite type of match? Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, tables, submission. Okay, I'm gonna take Royal Rumble out of it, because I mean that's awesome. The Royal Rumble is like the all-star game, and you have these surprise entrances. If that's where we're going, I'll go Royal Rumble. But I've always loved a ladder match. If not for the Royal Rumble, the ladder match. I've always loved high flying. Grew up a big fan of the Hardys. Obviously, those TLC matches were very much a big impression on myself and my brother growing up as fans. And there's so much story you can tell with a ladder match. The struggle of climbing up the ladder, the struggle of finding the ladder, putting it up. You can use it as a weapon. The different versions of a ladder match, because there's like TLC match, there's a regular ladder match. I would go there. I would go there. My favorite ones, in case someone's gonna ask, I want to beat you to it. For sure, TLC 2, WrestleMania 17, the ladder match. This one may be a hot take. The custody of Dominic. I know there's a lot of people out there that kind of like laugh at that storyline, but the matchup between Ray and Eddie, I love that feud. So that ladder match at SummerSlam in 2005, that one sticks out for me a lot, especially because it was one of the first pay-per-views that we had bought to watch live. So that sticks out for me. But the ladder match, for sure. I like going back and watching the original WrestleMania 10, Shawn versus Razor. That's a solid matchup. Really enjoyed watching that as well. That's a good question though. Eddie was so good. Eddie was the best. Eddie, we didn't know like how good Eddie was. I loved Eddie. Obviously, I talked about Ray and how much of a fan I was growing up of him and Eddie. Those two together, whether they were partners, whether they were foes, having those two against each other, man, was awesome. Custody of Dominic was a novella. It really was, honestly. Because it started off as friends, and then like to introduce the whole Dominic angle where Eddie is his father. I remember looking at my dad, and I asked him because I trusted him. I was like, "Is that true? Is that really his dad? Like, is this for real?" Like, it was awesome. It was awesome. If you could create a dream match, who would it be, past or present? My dream match almost happened. Reportedly. Shawn versus Eddie. Shawn versus Eddie is definitely a matchup that I've always wanted to see. They say it was going to happen at WrestleMania 22. Obviously, I mean, hey, that's what they're saying. How much can we trust of that? Eddie versus Shawn, I think, would have been match of the year. And I think those guys are very similar in the sense of their style, in the sense of their story, in the sense of like they were both great heels and great baby faces, technicians, Hall of Fame talents, two guys that a lot of people look up to in terms of inspiration, in terms of the way they want to model themselves in the ring. Eddie versus Shawn Michaels, by far, is a dream match. Another one, just to give you like an honorable mention, I would have loved to seen like Kurt Angle and Bret Hart. That's another one that I would have loved to have seen. Two technicians. And it's like, it's argued that maybe we could have gotten that because if Bret Hart doesn't leave for Montreal and go to WCW, maybe he lasts a little longer and we get Bret versus Angle like in 01, 02, maybe 2000. So that one nearly happened as well. That one for sure. If we're going present is that's a good one. Because I want to think of something that hasn't happened. Obviously, dream match. So I'm thinking of someone from WWE and then like from the outside. I know some people have talked about like Will Ospreay versus Seth Rollins. That's something that has been talked about like online, obviously, because they've had their little interactions like on Twitter. Will Ospreay versus Seth, I think, would be cool. Roman versus Kenny would be cool. Kenny versus Punk. Kenny versus Punk might, for me, just might be out of pettiness because of what happened at All Out and like the whole Elite and CM Punk thing. Kenny versus Punk, maybe. I think that'd be pretty cool. These are matches that I don't think are ever gonna happen. Maybe Will Ospreay, maybe, I don't know. But the Kenny versus Punk one is not going to happen for sure. Because he's not leaving AEW. Punk's not leaving WWE. So that's not going to happen for sure, for sure. But yeah. But no, for number one for sure, Eddie versus Shawn. Those for sure. Those two, that's my... I said Punk was number two. He's my favorite of all time, number two. Number one is Shawn. Number three is Eddie. The long-term storytelling with Dominic copying Eddie's hairstyle and mustache is so good, especially with how he keeps calling Ray a bad father for being on the road a lot. It's crazy, right? Like, how it pays off. That was the storyline in 2005. And to see the way Dominic has matured and improved, his mannerisms, his facial expressions. I talked about this on another video where Dominic like makes faces like Eddie would. Like these little smirks, these movements with his eyes. Like I see a lot of Eddie in Ray. Obviously, you know, Ray is his father. But I see a lot of Eddie in there, man. He has that bravado. He has that attitude. He's a great heel. Turning Dominic into a bad guy was one of the greatest decisions they could have made. And again, I do like the long term with the mullet, the mustache, his beef with Ray, because it makes logical sense. Like Ray is one of the greatest of all time. We love Ray. But Dominic maybe doesn't have that same relationship with Ray because he was always on the road. Oh snap, I didn't even realize that. Yeah. It's so good. I feel like once you notice his facial expressions, you're going to pick up on them. There was one, I always go back to this one. It was a recent episode of Raw where Tiffany comes out and she's talking to Liv and saying that she's coming after her title and then maybe she'll come after Dominic. This recently happened maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago. Liv is in front of Dom and Liv is behind her and he makes this face like looking at Tiffany. Like, oh. And then Liv turns around to look at him and he looks at her like no. And it's the way he does it. It might be really small and maybe I'm reaching, but I'm telling you, it looked like Eddie. Like the timing, it's so good. And it's like a contrast to Ray. Ray has a mask on. He has to be expressive with his eyes. You don't really get a lot of facial expressions, but you get the eyes. So I feel like Dominic has learned that from Ray in terms of expression, but a lot of them are from Eddie too, man. Like his uncle Eddie. It's so good. My hot take, Dominic is going to be a future world champion. I don't care if it's going to be like a one-day title reign or whether it's going to be, you know, just for laughs. Dominic is going to win the world title. I believe in it. I believe in it. This guy is such a good heel. And what does a WWE or what does a promotion do when you have a good heel? You give him the title. I can already see him being this like slimy heel who wins the title on a fluke or whatever, kind of gets away with it, keeps running away from baby faces. He defends the title, but then he's getting interference or he's winning on DQs or countouts, and it's just a way to keep getting under your skin. Dominic could be a world champion. I don't know if they'd give him the WWE title. I don't know about that. But the world title? Maybe, but I think they got to give him a run at like the IC or the US title. Give him that first. Test the waters like they did with the North American title. But I can certainly see Dominic winning the world title. And I will die on that hill because I believe in that. It's just a question of who's he beating and who's going to beat him. Because he's not going to be like a guy like Gunther. Maybe if he wins Money in the Bank. Maybe. I also like how they have like the new shirt Instead of like Latino heat for Eddie, it's Latino cheat. I'm like, okay, just feed into it. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. But Dominic for sure has been one of my favorites growing up. Not growing up, but like he's growing on me, I should say. Dominic has done so great with what he's been doing, with the Judgment Day, with Ray, with Rhea, with Damian. He's really taken it to it well. You can tell the business is in his blood. You can tell he's been around it for a long time because of how quick he was able to adapt. The early years, obviously, as a babyface, kind of struggled, I think, with the confidence as well as getting over with the crowd because he was always with Ray. And you don't want to be stuck being, oh, the son of Rey Mysterio. No, at this point, he's become his own man. He's Dominic. Ray, I think, is one of the best baby faces of all time. Never turned heel in the WWE. The last time he was a heel, I think, was like in '99 with the Filthy Animals. I think Ray's one of the best baby faces. I think Dom could go down as one of the best heels. And that's so cool. So happy for him, man. So happy for him. These are great questions. Great questions, great comments here. Shout out to Laura, shout out to Kevin, Alex. Appreciate you guys. Always staying active, always giving me something to talk about. Because I like talking about the shows, don't get me wrong. I like Luis as well. I like talking about the shows and keeping up to date with what's going on there and listening to your guys' takes. But I also like interacting with you guys here. Where does WWE go with Punk's team with OG Bloodline? What comes after? So, I look at the new Bloodline. I'm going to start there. Bronson Reed's inclusion. I don't know if that's a one-off because when they introduced Bronson Reed today, they made it sound like he was a member of the Bloodline, both the commentary team and the announce team. When it comes to Punk, it's a one-off. He's not going to be with the Bloodline for long. It's a one-off. This is him doing that favor for Heyman. Heyman had asked CM Punk for a favor a few months ago. It was around the time he got jumped and powerbombed through the table at Madison Square Garden. He asked him for a favor. Punk said, "What's the favor? Take me with you." I think this is a way of Punk kind of cashing in on that favor. What comes after? It's got to be Roman versus Punk. It's got to be. Roman versus Punk, I think, is the next big match. I mean, maybe not the next big matchup, but it's certainly a big matchup that we can target. It just depends when they want to do it. If you ask me right now, I think Roman's team gets the win. I talked about if Seth Rollins joins the team, Roman's team, they lose. It will not work. He didn't join. It's Punk. I think they get the win. And that'll help prolong this feud between Punk and Reigns. But I mean, for how long? What might happen? That's tough. Because I try to think of it from their style. Roman Reigns and Cody won at Bad Blood. The Rock showed up, reminding them, hey, I'm still here. Crown Jewel, the new Bloodline gets the win. They beat Roman. He gets pinned for like the third time in the last 4 years. So it's technically like 1-1, right? War Games is tough because I think if the baby faces go over, it kind of settles this going on with Solo, right? And I could see Rock making an appearance. It's in Vancouver. It's in Canada. And right now he's filming Moana, I believe. I don't know where they're filming. Maybe there's a possibility he shows up at the Survivor Series. Whether it's a win or loss, maybe there's a shot he shows up. But it's tough. Right now it's a toss-up on who wins. Whether it's the good guys or the bad guys. But it leads to Rock versus Roman. But then there's also Cody versus Rock. I mean, you can't call it. Like this build up to WrestleMania, you can't call it yet. What if long-term storytelling had Punk teaming with Reigns as Seth's former teammate? Punk could know his moves. You got rid of it, I see. I do think eventually, though, this will lead to Seth versus Punk. I think that's a matchup. Book it. Write it in pen. Permanent marker. Punk versus Rollins is happening at WrestleMania. So, if you missed it, Kevin, I'm not sure if you were there early on, but I did talk about how Punk versus Rollins is going to be built off of this. Rollins says, I want nothing to do with Reigns. I don't want to team up with him. Next time I see him, I'm going to stomp him out. So who comes in to fill his spot? Punk. Rollins will see that as, oh, you're going to help the guy that took control over the WWE, held the title hostage, beat us all down, and took us 4 years to take down. You're going to team with him. That's immediately. These guys don't like each other already. That's immediately going to be a problem between Punk and Rollins. That's why I think maybe Punk and the Bloodline get the win, just to keep it going. And then we pick up maybe at the Royal Rumble. Could he team with Roman Reigns? That's a theory. But Roman's a SmackDown guy. Punk is a Raw guy. The only reason they're teaming up is because of the Bloodline, who are primarily SmackDown. I don't know. Maybe as a one-off, Saturday night's main event. I mean, hey, if you're going to do it at a special event, I feel like Saturday night's main event is a pretty darn good show to do it, right? We're already going to have what I think will be Cody versus Kevin, as well as the U.S. finals for the women's division. Why not add another big match and have Punk and Roman team up against who? Jacob and Bronson? Solo and Jacob? I don't know. What's your favorite Raw versus SmackDown video game? Good question. I think the big three, obviously, are the first three, right? SmackDown versus Raw, then 2006, then 2007. Those are the best three. I'm more partial to the first one because that was the first wrestling game I had. The roster reminded me of the roster that I remember growing up with. I talk about here on the channel where I started watching wrestling at like 2. This is on like the account of my family at 2. But my memory really goes back to like 03 as far as it can go. 2007 was fire. I agree with you. But again, if I'm going biased, that first one. I like that first one. 07 though, probably second place. Like a really close second. 07 was good. 06, I like because of the roster. I really liked WWE in 2005. So mine would be the first SmackDown vs. Raw, 2007, really close. Then 06. The roster had legends like Sabu, Dreamer, Sandman. I was a big ECW fan. But were you a big ECW fan of like the WWE version? Because I feel like that was in great mode. Like GM, I like the old GM mode. This new one, I mean, like, okay, I guess, but I can't sit there and play it for too long. We talked about ECW. What did you think about ECW in like the 2006 to 2010 era of WWE? Because for me, I think in theory, they could have had that show. You could have kept it the way it was. But it's because you branded it ECW. If they would have called it anything else, it could have worked. But it's because you put the name ECW, you put that expectation. And it's not ECW. It's not what people remembered. It's not what people wanted. The One Night Stand was amazing. The pay-per-view, yes. One Night Stand 2005 and 2006, fantastic. Absolutely, no question. It's just what followed. You got One Night Stand, all-time pay-per-view. You got 2006, fantastic. And then after, when they went with the show, it was downhill. I remember the debut episode where they had the zombie. When I saw the zombie on the first episode of that ECW iteration, oh, I knew. I was 8. I was 8 years old, and I knew, oh, this is not good. This is not going to be good. And then there was the Big Show versus Batista matchup for the ECW title, where fans were chanting, "Change the channel." Oof. That was like 2 months in. Ooh, that was bad. That was real bad. But like I said, if they want to do it that way, you can do it that way. It's just the branding of ECW. You can't. You know, that's like making a superhero movie, like a bad superhero movie, and just slapping the Marvel Studios logo. It's like, that's just false advertisement. Like, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot like that. Don't do that to yourself, man. I don't know. The original ECW run, obviously, I wasn't, capable of watching it back then because I was like one when it went like out of business. But that stuff, man. Raven, Dreamer, Sabu, the Dudleys, Funk, Candido, Storm, Jericho, Guerrero, Malenko, Mysterio. That was, what a time, man. What a time it must have been to be in the 90s. We're going to start closing down a little bit here on the stream. It's getting pretty late over here on the West Coast. 12:30 my time. Any last minute comments or questions? Like I said, I'm going to be uploading those pictures. I really want to share those with you guys about my memories going to WrestleMania 26. Also, meeting Rey Mysterio, which was a great memory for me. As always, man, appreciate you joining us on the post-show reaction here, especially for Friday Night SmackDown. It's going to be interesting for next week. I don't think I'll be able to do a post-show reaction following next week's SmackDown on account that it is going to be Black Friday and your boy's going to have to be working. So, might upload something Saturday morning. The usual 10 a.m. time here on the West Coast. And then obviously Survivor Series will be in the night. But I do expect something for Monday Night Raw. And it might be a little earlier than usual, only because Raw, I believe, starts at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. I gotta relook at the time. So it's going to end by the time I think the show starts. So we'll see how we'll work on that. Keep an eye out for Monday night. I'll put something on the community tab, of course, to keep you guys updated. But obviously the podcast, Monday, 10 a.m. on the West Coast. Wednesday, anticipate something for NXT. And tomorrow's Full Gear. Might do something there. Survivor Series next week. So a big week of wrestling ahead of us. Of course, I want to thank you guys. Appreciate the support and for checking out here on the post-show reaction for Friday Night SmackDown. Shout out to Kevin, Luis, Lore, Alex. Thank you guys for always participating, and nice seeing you guys in the lives consistently. Awesome questions, awesome conversations. I see one last one here. Who do you think has the best finisher, and what a great way to finish off the post-show reaction? I'm biased. I like the super kick from Shawn, but that's my biased answer. The real answer, I think Randy Orton, the RKO. You can hit it out of nowhere. You can hit it with anybody. You can hit it on anybody of size. Randy Orton, I'll go on the record book, best finisher. And with that being said, thank you, Kevin, for that last question. We'll see you Monday. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by and joining us on the live. As always, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Appreciate the support. Go ahead and keep liking the videos, commenting on the videos, subscribe if you haven't already. The analytics say 80% of the views are coming from people who are not subscribed. So if you would please super kick or RKO that subscribe button to keep up to date with all the content that is produced here, as well as staying in the conversation that is professional wrestling. And with that being said, of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.